Hello again, friends. Today we're going to be making parsley potatoes. Parsley potatoes, nice little side dish, which is very classic, but something that, I don't know, people just don't make anymore. I think ever since roasting potatoes became a fad, well, not even a fad, I love a good roasted potato. But since it became a thing, lots of people do this. So, I have here some red potatoes, and I have some russet potatoes. I'm going to cut them into all pretty even sized pieces because we want them all to cook at about the same length of time. I do think that red potatoes are best for this, but I have some russets that are starting to get close to when they really want to get used by. So we're going to make sure that they find a happy home. This is another dish continuing on my theme of family recipes that would be served constantly. We'd have the Irish kraut, which we made the other day, and parsley potatoes would always be there. And it's always good to make extra of these because you can use them for a lot of things. One thing that parsley potatoes will do is make the world's best home fries. Maybe behind salt potatoes. So I have working next to me a pot full of water that working on getting up to a boil. And we're going to salt that. Just like you would for pasta. And then once these potatoes get in there, we're going to bring them up to a boil. And then work them until they are fork tender, but not, not too soft, because you don't want them to fall apart when we're tossing them with the butter and parsley. Alright, we're going to cook them up, and we'll be back to show you how you're going to finish them up. Okay. So, parsley potatoes, basically just a few ingredients. It's the potatoes, butter, salt, and pepper, and parsley. So I'm going to start melting my butter. I got about 4 or 5 tablespoons there. And I'm going to chop up my parsley. I think it's really important to have your butter melted beforehand. Yeah, the potatoes are going to come out and be extremely, extremely hot and retain their heat, and they would be hot enough to melt the butter. But the amount of stirring that you're going to need to do to, if you were to add the butter to the potatoes whole after it was done cooking, by the time you muck through the potatoes, you'd end up with a lot of mashed potatoes in it. And while you want a little bit of that, you don't want too much. And I'm going to use the extra potatoes, make some home fries possibly, but more likely, I'm going to use those potatoes as fillings for a pierogi that I'm going to make tomorrow. So you do that in line cook, you think about, what the next meal could be. I say prep is so hard. Well, in this way I'm kind of prepping for 2 meals at once now. And when I make a batch of pierogies, I'll have a batch of pierogies for weeks, or at least a week. or not as much time if I had company or share. Alright, so that butter is melting up. Yes, it has salt in it, but we're going to add a little bit more. And we're going to add a good amount of fresh cracked pepper. Because right when we add the butter and parsley to it is when that seasoning is really going to take hold. So, put as much pepper as you think it needs, and then put some more in. And I'm going to add a little bit of paprika as well. Just a touch. It's more that I like paprika. This was not in the family recipe, so if you're trying to be a good schmel, don't put this in there. Uncle Raymond will get mad at you. But it's okay, you can have some of his rum trifle later and you won't remember a thing. So okay, we got our butter, we got our parsley. I don't put the parsley on until the potatoes are done. So we're just gonna stay right here, status quo, until the potatoes are done. Alright guys, we are back. Just checked our potatoes there, it's done. Gonna get them drained out. Having that wooden spatula over the top, a little tricky is to stop the pot from boiling water. The wood will break the surface tension in the bubbles that are forming in the boiling water. And so you don't get a big mess. Let you sit in the living room while you're cooking. So we're going to put them back in that hot pot. Take our butter. Pour that over there. Gonna grab a couple potatoes, and so that none of it's wasted, just kind of smear them around that pan. And we're gonna add our parsley. Lots and lots of parsley. That is why they call it parsley potatoes. When I was a kid, I didn't know that that's what they were called. I asked Mom to make them once, or Dad, and I said, I want those do-it-yourself mashed potatoes. That's how I used to eat them. Anytime I had them, I'd mash them up and put more butter on them. Sometimes I'd mash our corn into them. Just how I like to have them. So you go ahead and toss them up, and you always want to make sure you have enough butter. That's going to be good. They're on there everywhere. I salted the butter. I'm going to salt the potatoes a little bit more. A little bit more cracked pepper on them. I'm going to show you how I'm going to serve this up for tonight's supper. I have in my oven extremely hot tomatoes provençal. Funny how that happens in the oven. Alright. I have in my au gratin dish. And the way I'm going to serve it, just to make it look all pretty, I'm going to take some of these potatoes and dress them around the outside of these stuffed tomatoes. So both things are garnishing each other. Looks really nifty. So there we have our parsley potatoes, served tonight with tomatoes provençal. Please like and subscribe. I hope you enjoy.